Thank you for tuning into I Stand with Zambia YouTube channel. My name is Mwansa. This channel is not affiliated with any political party, but it is 100% affiliated with being a Zambian. So, the Bank of Zambia governor was fired, Mr. Denny Kalialia. He was fired by President Edgar Lungu. In this video, we're going to look at the history of banking in Zambia all the way through to where we are today. We're going to attempt to understand why the banking system in Zambia is where it is right now. We're going to explore terms like fiscal policy, monetary policy, credit ratings, inflation. What do all these words have to do with the Bank of Zambia? The Bank of Zambia is Zambia's central bank, and it's a really important institution. Why things are the way they are. And if you know a way of how you can make things better, by all means, use your gifts and talents to try to get us out of where we are right now, because things don't look good. In fact, things are not good. In the economic world, Zambia isn't looking good at all. Okay, so please share the link, subscribe if you have not, and if you have subscribed, thank you so much. Plug in right here. We are over 500 subscribers right now. I mean, clap for yourself, okay? Clap for yourself. You're standing with Zambia. You're like, yes, I believe in standing with Zambia, in preserving our national identity, demanding good governance, and protecting our national and natural resources. Go you, okay. Thank you so much. 500 subscribers. Listen, you are the best. We are over 500. So I just want to thank all of you. God bless you. God keep you. And, may all that we're doing, by educating ourselves and sharing with others, it will not be in vain. Amen. Amen. All right now. So let's get into the video. In 1938, when the British government ruled the territory of Northern Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia, and Nyasaland, all the banking for the region was done in Salisbury. Salisbury is what is known today as Harare in Zimbabwe. In 1956, the first central bank was created, and it was known as the Bank of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. It was located in Lusaka. The Bank of Zambia was created in August 1964, and the first governor was Mr. H.C. Harrod, who governed from 1964 to 1967. At that time, the Zambian money was known as the Zambian pound, and it was only in 1968, with the Bank of Zambia governor being Mr. Justin B. Zulu, that the Zambian currency was called the kwacha as we know it today. When the Bank of Zambia opened, it had 100 staff members and only 2 functioning departments. The departments were the Chief Cashiers, or also known as the General Manager's Department, and the Secretary's Department. There was an increase in the demand of functions of the bank, and so this resulted in a flurry of various new departments being created. With more departments, we had more staff, and so this resulted also in the further expansion of the bank building being extended to what we know it as today. Zambia's central bank, the Bank of Zambia, has had, up until August 2020, a total of 16 governors. So the Bank of Zambia is firmly established as Zambia's central bank. But what exactly does the central bank do?
Every country has a central bank. In the US, it is the Federal Reserve. In the UK, it is the Bank of England. And for Europe, it is the European Central Bank. The primary function of a central bank is to manage the nation's money supply through activities, duties such as managing interest rates, setting the reserve requirements, and acting as a lender of last resort to the banking sector during times of bank insolvency or financial crisis. The central bank has been described as the lender of last resort, which means that it is responsible for providing its economy with funds when commercial banks cannot cover a supply shortage. In other words, the central bank prevents this country's banking system from failing. However, the primary goal of a central bank is to provide their country's currency with price stability by controlling inflation. A central bank also acts as the regulatory authority of the country's monetary policy and is the sole provider and printer of notes and coins in circulations. Time has proved that a central bank can best function in these capacities by remaining independent from government fiscal policy and therefore uninfluenced by the political concerns of any regime. The central bank should also be completely divested of any commercial banking interests.
Let's now listen to Denny Kalialia explain what his concerns were as the governor of Zambia's central bank. Let's take a listen to what his concerns were about the state of the economy under his watch, what he is observing.
Take this into context that our economy, even before COVID-19 struck, was having challenges. Last year we had the growth of 1.9%. That's the estimated growth. That's quite low, which is also historically low. So when now you add COVID-19, that's why we go to the minus rather than the plus. So that's the recession part of it. So this part, when you have a recession, and for us here also is accompanied also by inflation, it's a bad mix because the prices are rising, which means that whatever little income that you have is not going to go around. So that's the issue we are talking about here, that the economy is getting smaller rather than getting big.
To reduce by this margin.
It's really where we started from in our conversation, that the economy is under serious stress. So if we don't do that, it's threatening our very existence. If we don't do something as a country, then we can not expect anything good coming out of this. So our motivation is to try and stimulate some activity.
A short time after this interview aired on national television, the president fired the governor. Now, the utterances of the governor are not shocking. Everybody on the planet knows that Zambia's debt is out of control. And the reason why the debt is out of control is because the Patriotic Front government have been overborrowing money for infrastructure development. Now, my last video, the video I did before this one, I recommend you go watch it. You're going to learn everything you need to know about how the Patriotic Front government have been financing their infrastructure projects. And it really is to the detriment of the assets that we have in Zambia, because we're losing them in exchange for money. So I recommend you go watch it. And you know what? Back in 2019, look at this article. This is the Minister of Finance, where he's saying that the reason why the kwacha is tanking is because all of the money that we have is going to pay off debts, and we don't have enough reserves. The minister is saying that Zambia has low reserves. In comparison to what? So the Bank of China has reserves of $3.3 trillion. The Bank of England, $18 billion. The Central Bank of South Africa, $38 million. The Central Bank of Angola, $23 million. The Bank of Zambia has $2.5 million in reserve. This aircraft that you're looking at right now is the presidential jet that the Patriotic Front purchased for Edgar Lungu. This jet cost $26 million. The minister also spoke about the depreciation of the kwacha. Let's look into this. The strength of a currency is determined by four things: interest rates, economic policies, stability, and positive trade balance. Now, when I saw this, the two things that really stood out to me were economic policies and stability. So by economic policies, it requires tight fiscal discipline, and anti-inflammatory monetary policies help promote a strong currency. Number 3, stability. A strong government with well-established rule of law and a history of constructive economic policies are conditions that attract investments and promote a strong currency. Now, I'm not going to go into details about the rule of law in Zambia, because if anybody is following the day-to-day news in Zambia, you know that the rule of law is in dire straits right now. So it's very unstable in the country. And in terms of fiscal policy and monetary policy, let's look at what
fiscal
that
policy is all about taxation and spending. It's what the government decides to do in terms of the taxes it levies on individuals and companies, as well as what it chooses to spend those taxes on, and whether or not it needs to borrow money in order to finance a budget deficit. So more on that in a minute. On the other side, monetary policy is all about the use of interest rates predominantly and other tools and tactics to control the amount of money in the economy and the cost of money.
When the IMF and other financial organizations are advising the Patriotic Front government to curtail their spending, what they're telling the Patriotic Front government is to take control of their fiscal policy, take control of how they're spending their money, how they're borrowing. So the economy of Zambia is, as the governor was saying, we have inflation and we have recession because of the poor fiscal policy that has been implemented by the Patriotic Front government. Too much borrowing, heavy taxation, spending money that is not being generated in the economy of Zambia. So the bank is seeing how people don't have jobs. They're seeing how the commercial banks are doing, and they are unwilling to put money into the economy through loans and stuff like that, because they know that there's no money. The people are going to default. They won't be able to pay back the loans. And so they're just like, okay, the fiscal is tanking. As the monetary, we have to hold steady, because we cannot allow both the fiscal and the monetary to go down together. So that was why the governor said what he said, that something has to give. And what he's saying is that the fiscal policy, which is set by the government, and in this day and age, the government of Zambia is the Patriotic Front government. He's saying you have to get yourselves together. And he's not the only one saying that. In my other video, again, the video I mentioned about where I speak about how the Patriotic Front have sold Zambia to China, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, when they did their virtual meeting with Zambian ministers, they said to Zambia, you need to curtail your fiscal policy. You have to get that under control. They never mention monetary policy. In December 2019, Zambia was rated as the world's third worst performer in regards to currency value. Today, a Zambian needs 19 kwacha in order to buy $1. Zambia is also one of the top 5 vulnerable economies and currencies in the world. Let's look back. Between 2011 and 2015, $1 was costing between 4 and 5 kwacha. So that's over like a 4-year period. In 2014, Michael Sata dies. And around 2015-ish, there's this internal power struggle where Guy Scott reluctantly has to hand over power to Edgar Lungu. I remember vividly watching the video on the news when the cabinet members of the Patriotic Front stormed Guy Scott's farm with the news crew and forced him to sign over power to Edgar Lungu. In this photograph, you see Guy Scott holding the piece of paper. He's surrounded by all the cabinet members, and he must sign over power. They even blocked the road that led to his farm. So nobody was going to leave until that paper was signed. So from 2015, the kwacha depreciates rapidly. And looking at this graph, we see how the graph increases in the depreciation of the kwacha. So it starts all the way down there at 4. You can see the years around 2014, 2011, just around there. And then 2015, from 5 kwacha, it picks up all the way to where we are today, almost hitting 20. In April 2020, the Zambian kwacha was rated as the worst performer on the African continent. This, my friends, is the story behind Zambia's currency depreciation. Let's continue. There are 3 international credit rating agencies in the world: Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch Ratings. Well, these are the 3 big ones. There are other ones, but these are the top 3, okay? And they rate the viability of investments relative to the likelihood of default. So investors use their ratings as a guide as to which investments will not default and subsequently yield a solid return. So based on the ratings, right now, Fitch Ratings has rated Zambia as CC. Looking at this chart, we see what CC means. Being in the CC category, that means that the Zambian economy has an imminent default with little prospects for recovery. The other end of the spectrum is having a AAA rating right at the top there, and I had a look at which countries are AAA. So one of the countries I saw was Australia. But looking at where we are into this video right now, you sort of have an understanding of why we're here. By now, it's clicked. You understand where we are going. And so this is why these credit rating agencies have given our economy under the Patriotic Front government's leadership a CC rating. And if you look at this table, like, we're like one step away from default. Like, this is serious. Now, the reason why they've given Zambia this CC rating is because they believe that the government the Patriotic Front government is unlikely to be able to fully meet its external obligations in 2020 and 2021 in the absence of external financing sources. Much of the external borrowing is directly tied to project financing and will not be readily available for debt servicing. As a result, the Bank of Zambia will struggle to maintain the necessary external liquidity to allow for uninterrupted debt services, in our view. Mr. Kalialia was fired as the Bank of Zambia governor by President Edgar Lungu because he was trying to continue to have the bank's operations and management be independent from the government. Advocates of central bank independence argue that a central bank which is too susceptible to political direction or pressure may encourage economic cycles, boom and busts, as politicians are tempted to boost the economic activity in advance of an election to the detriment of the long-term health of the economy and the country. This is why the appointment of Christopher Mvunga, who is an insider, he's a deputy secretary to Edgar Lungu's cabinet. He's a specialist in bank products and a chartered accountant. The reaction of the firing of the central bank governor by the finance minister in South Africa is because South Africa coordinates all of the central bank governors under SADC. This is why he said all that he said in his tweet and in subsequent interviews. The appointment of Mr. Mvunga is subject to ratification by Parliament. That basically means Parliament needs to agree that Mr. Mvunga can be the governor. So in the meantime, President Lungu has appointed the deputy governor of the Bank of Zambia, Mr. Chipimo, to be the acting governor until such a time that Mr. Mvunga is approved by Parliament. So here we have the official response from the IMF spokesman in regard to the firing of the central bank governor of Zambia. They're saying that macroeconomic stability that most developing countries enjoy in recent years has relied on improved effectiveness and increased independence of central banks. So they're saying developing countries like yours have done well whenever the central bank is independent. And they're saying to the Patriotic Front government that it is imperative that the Bank of Zambia, the operations and the management of it, remain independent and credible. They close by saying that it's virtually impossible to have a sustained economic growth when the credibility of the central bank is in question. They're also concerned that the living standards of the people in the country would not improve.
With the appointment of Mr. Mvunga as the governor of the Bank of Zambia, it now gives the Patriotic Front government control of not just the fiscal policy, which they always had control of, now we know, but it also now gives the Patriotic Front government control of the monetary policy. So everything to do with the economy is now in the hand of Edgar Lungu and his Patriotic Front cabinet members and party. There are legitimate global and domestic concerns that Mr. Mvunga will struggle to run the central bank because of his lack of experience.
Mr. Mvunga has
a wealth of banking experience within the commercial banking sector. He does not have any experience in the central banking environment. The Zambian constitution does include the two qualifications that Mr. Mvunga has, and that is a qualification in accounting and a qualification in banking. As we said earlier, Mr. Mvunga lacks experience within a central bank environment. Commercial banks and central banks operate on totally different levels, and that is the concern that anybody who knows anything to do with how economies are run is concerned about. It's just normal for anyone to expect a central bank governor to be chosen from a crop of people with experience within the central banking environment, and not from someone who has zero central banking experience.
The one thing that we know that Mr. Mvunga will not struggle with is following orders. He will have no struggle doing what he's told to do.
Your Excellency, this is a surprise. Welcome.
What do you mean we have no money? I need at least $1 million for intelligence mission immediately. I told you on the telephone that I need this money urgently.
Your Excellency, as I told the raid also, we're bankrupt. We're simply out of foreign currency.
Well, print more.
Your Excellency, it's not quite that simple. We cannot print foreign currency. I'm having a lot of difficulties these days in persuading our foreign suppliers to accept late payments. The Uganda shilling is worthless today in the foreign market. In fact, worthless than toilet paper.
Toilet paper? You call Uganda money shit money? Take Governor here outside and show him what we do to shit. Imperialists will not run Uganda's banks.
Yes, sir. You are mistaken, Your Excellency. I wasn't arguing with you. I was only trying to explain.
Take him away.
Let me explain.
What's your name?
John, Your Excellency. John Ogel.
Well, okay. You are now the governor. I want to print more money.
Yes, Your Excellency, yes. We will do it right away, sir. As much as you want. Yes, sir.
What we witnessed from Mr. Denny Kalyalia are what I believe to be his pulling together his knowledge and his expertise and consulting with other bank governors, because, you know, you don't do things in isolation, okay? He was upholding the integrity of the central bank and doing everything that he could to prop up the economy, even though there was pressure, so much pressure coming from the fiscal to just make the whole thing fall apart. I really believed what we saw in Mr. Kalyalia was his attempt to save the Zambian economy.
This is I Stand with Zambia YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe.